All right, all right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. We will start with our announcements, a recommended reading, our affirmation of the day. We'll have a chance for people to introduce themselves and/or share any victories from the last week. We'll have an excerpt from my audiobook, topic discussion. We'll take our break and we'll come back for Q&A. All right, so our first announcement, as always, author-signed paperbacks. Get 20% off by using the discount code BOOK20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/book. They make great holiday gifts, and I'm happy to sign that book to whoever you would like me to. Next, we have a new announcement. This is my photography book, New York Cityscapes. This book was actually a collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City photographers. This book is the definitive New York City lover photo book. I'll show you some pictures. There's the cover. And these are some of the inside photos. There's some helicopter shots over New York City. Some ground level shots down on Fifth Avenue, the Flatiron Building and the Empire State Building. Fireworks shots, Times Square. Some more shots of double rainbow over Lower Manhattan. Some storm chasing, lightning strikes on Manhattan. So this book is available on my website. It is the perfect holiday gift for the New York City lover in you. It's on sale right now for only $16.95. Go to bebiggertoday.com/bookstore and get your copy. And I will also sign one of these for you. Still working on the audiobook. Hopefully soon. Pre-order right now for $9.99. That's almost half off the regular price. And if with the paperback and the audiobook, if you don't completely love them, just let me know and I'll send you your money back. Money back guarantee, but I know you're going to love them. Speaking of the holidays and the gift-giving season, we have merch available, hats and t-shirts. Get 20% off using the discount code MERCH20 at checkout at bebiggertoday.com/merch. And we also have something new to offer. New York City refrigerator magnets. I am the refrigerator magnet magnate. I have 11 original photos of mine on refrigerator magnets. You can also get those on bebiggertoday.com/merch. 1 for $5, 3 for $10. You get all 11 of them for $25. And I got to tell you guys, these are collector's items because there's only so many of them available. You're going to love them. They're going to look great holding up your affirmations on your refrigerator. And as always, I'm available for one-on-one coaching and/or business consulting if you have your own company, or if you work for a company and you'd like me to come in and speak to your sales team and/or your management team and help them be bigger than they think they are, I'm the guy for you. Just reach out to me through the website and we'll set that up. Also have an announcement. So you guys asked for it and you got it. Starting next week, the login for this workshop will be the same every week. So this is the new meeting code and the passcode stays the same, bigger, all caps. This meeting ID will be at least through the end of the year into next year. So you will not have to, unless you're new or you tell somebody who's new, you won't have to register every time. So that's the meeting ID. It will go out with the confirmation emails, although if you've already registered, you won't get the confirmation email. So write it down, folks, 842-0353-1228 is our meeting ID, and the passcode is bigger. All right, tonight's recommended reading, we're continuing on with the Conversations with God book series. This was the 5th book in the trilogy. It was only supposed to be 3, and then it turned into 5, and then it turned into like 15 books. But every one of them is a keeper. This was the 5th book in the series, Communion with God. Love this book, highly recommend it. If you're not familiar, these books are written as a dialogue between the author and God, the Holy Spirit, his higher power, whatever you want to call it. All these books changed my life. It was my introduction to spirituality at a certain level, at least. So I highly recommend all the Conversations with God books. Last week we talked about friendship with God. The week before that we talked about books 1, 2, and 3 in the Conversations trilogy. Go to nealdonaldwalsh.com, or you can go to Amazon. All the books are there. They're available as ebooks, as hardcover, paperbacks, and also my favorite, the audiobooks. So I listen to these books over and over again. Have them on my phone. So highly recommend Communion with God by Neale Donald Walsch. Affirmation of the day. I am willing to release the pattern that is causing this condition. All right, now I have to tell the truth. I actually stole this from Louise Hay. You Can Heal Your Life. But there's a couple of things I like about this affirmation. Number one, I am willing to release this pattern, meaning that I have some agency, I have some power in my life. Stuff is not just happening to me, it's actually coming from me. I'm creating my life, probably without knowing it. So by having some willingness to release that pattern, now we've talked so much about habitual patterns and ways of seeing ourselves, habitual thought processes. You know, it's that habitual pattern of thinking that ultimately creates our lives, but what it does is it attracts to us situations, people, circumstances that are in alignment with those thoughts and beliefs that we have about ourselves and about the world. So it's that pattern of thinking that attracts to us the people, places, and things that help create the experiences that we have. And then the last part of this affirmation that I like is that's causing this condition. It could be a health condition, it could be a relationship condition, it could be a financial condition. Whatever that condition is, this affirmation will work for all of them. Now, you probably want to specify, this financial condition, this condition with my spouse, with my kids, whatever. But my point is, it's kind of, it's not one size fits all, but you can use it on multiple situations in your life. So I am willing to release the pattern that is causing this condition. Again, the workshop exercise for tonight, how do you define happiness? Tonight we're actually going to finish up our discussion on true power. And we're going to, if you're familiar, if you have the book, you know that chapter 3 is about true power and true happiness. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about true power, and then we're going to start talking about happiness. And I'm very happy that we're talking about happiness. I hope you're happy too. All right, so here's an opportunity for anybody who would like to share a victory. I don't see any new people on right now, but if you would like to share a victory from the past week. Anybody have anything they would like to share with us this evening? Something wonderful from this past week.
I'll share something, Peter.
Great.
It's Judy. Anyway, I'm involved with 4 other people building a business online.
I heard.
And it's very out of my character. And Cynthia's one of them. And today we videoed a portion of something that we're going to be doing. We don't know whether it's daily, weekly, whatever on it. And we did 2 sessions. And that was a victory for me because I've been scared to death to do it. And I did it. Yay! So that's my victory, walking through that.
I know the feeling. Believe me.
I'm not good at being an actress. However, it's not really that I should be an actress for this because it's to my core. It's what I believe in and whatever to talk about it. So it's impromptu, whatever. But anyway, it was cool. It was cool. So thanks.
Great. I'm really proud of you. That's awesome. And that is being bigger than you think you are, right? I mean, this is doing
Absolutely.
something that takes us out of our comfort zone. That's what this is all about, baby. Nothing changes until we change. And for me, at least, it's getting out of the comfort zone. I got to tell you, I was behind the camera for 15 years. And when I sat in front of this camera for the first time, I was like, holy shit. You know, it was horrible. So I get it. Anybody else? Cynthia?
I'd like to share that I was another partner for Judy in doing those little film clips, and that they look really good. They sound good. And we were so excited. It's scary to do those things. It really is. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And I was interviewed with Judy's son for a radio program that's going to be on celebrating our book, The Fix for Cravings. And it'll be in Chicago Media Land at like 10:30 at night on Sunday. So, but I'll try to capture it so I can listen to it at a different time. So, but that's exciting too.
That's awesome. That's great. And you can you could probably ask them to send you a copy of it.
I'll do it.
So you have a copy and you can put it on the website and whatever else.
Ooh.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank
I'm proud of you too. It's like, first of all, I love that you noticed that it was good, because when we're doing it, it's like, oh, this sucks. This is terrible. And then I've had the experience on a weekly basis of watching back the recording and saying, oh, that wasn't so bad. I did pretty good. So, and then we have an opportunity to be our own best friend. You know, it's moving from being our own worst enemy to our own best friend. And so how would we treat a best friend? What would we say to them? How would we encourage them? You know, so it's great. It's an opportunity to do all of that. And then if we do make a mistake, it's an opportunity to learn from it and then forgive ourselves for it. And then it's not a mistake because we learn something from it and we practice forgiveness, which doesn't get any better than that. Good job. Anybody else? All right, so let us move on. I'm going to do our audiobook excerpt for tonight. Now we're going to be reading from, still in chapter 3, we're going to be on page, if you have the book, if you want to follow along, we are page 84, bottom of the page, if you have the book. And this is definitely, there's going to be some differences. This is definitely, I did some revisions on this section. So it's going to be a little different, but the gist of it is the same, so you can read along with that. Power equals responsibility. At the end of the last chapter, I teased that most of us were probably unaware of the relationship between power and responsibility. I want to address that now. We know that when we deny responsibility for something, we lose our ability to change it. This is because we see its source as outside of us. Likewise, when we take responsibility for something, we get our power back, since we can now change or control its effects on us. Thus, if power is the ability to change or control something, and if that ability is contingent on us taking responsibility for that thing, then it becomes clear that power and responsibility are the same thing. You can't have one without the other. They're two sides of the same coin. In practical terms, this means we can't alter any part of our lives that we're not willing to take responsibility for. As long as I believe it's my mother's fault or my teacher's fault or my boss's fault or the government's fault that I am the way I am, I'm powerless to change things. Of course, the converse is also true. By accepting responsibility, I can have a whole new experience of my life. The courage to change. Just because we have the ability to do something doesn't mean we're necessarily going to do it. Even after years of working on myself, I still sometimes, often, act in accordance with my old habitual ways of being. I found that for me, breaking old habits and making new choices often requires courage. Why? Because change is scary. We're potentially entering the unknown, and the unknown can be very frightening. My life may be miserable and I may be in terrible pain, but at least I know what to expect each day. For many people, fear of the unknown can overpower the pain of the known. Related to this is the fear many of us have around the loss of a particular identity. I mentioned this earlier in relation to seeing ourselves as victims. The unhappiness and/or self-pity many of us associate with being a victim can become an integral part of who we think we are. The result is there may be great resistance in our subconscious mind to letting that self-image go. This issue is further compounded by the fact that it's common in our society to define ourselves and/or to relate to others based on our negative life experiences. For instance, we may bond with other people on the basis of our illnesses, broken family relationships, missed career opportunities, etc. If you think I'm overstating this, the next time you talk to a friend that you usually commiserate with, refrain from saying anything negative about your life and see how long the conversation lasts. A long history of relating to others based on a negative self-image can make changing who we think we are very difficult. Thus, becoming a new you may require more courage and conscious intention than you think. Don't worry, be happy. Okay, so we've covered true power. Now it's time to talk about true happiness. If you ask the average person what they want out of life, most will say they just want to be happy. But they say it like there's something that's preventing them from being that. What most of us don't realize is that happiness is not something that just happens to us, although it can seem this way when we're not consciously creating our lives. Rather, happiness is a choice. It's a decision to experience life in a certain way. Thus, if we want to feel more happiness, we have to deliberately choose thoughts, feelings, words, and actions that are consistent with it. This means, for instance, letting go of fearful, angry, or depressing thoughts. Likewise, it's impossible to feel good if we're beating ourselves up all the time. Nothing takes the joy out of life faster than self-recrimination. The insanity is many of us choose unhappy thoughts all day long and then wonder why we're unhappy. That's how out to lunch we are in terms of creating our own lives. Jerry and Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks Publications, who teach what is commonly known as the law of attraction, have this to say about happiness. You have absolute and utter control about feeling good because you can choose the thought that makes you worry or the thought that makes you happy, the thought that thrills you or the things that worry you. You have that choice in every moment. This is consistent with what we've been saying. If we want to feel happy, it's our responsibility to choose happy thoughts. Though most of us are probably not aware of it, we're constantly deciding how we feel by the nature of the thoughts we think. As I said in the introduction to this book, people who are truly happy are probably happy despite the events and circumstances of their lives, rather than because of them. We have to want to be happy no matter what's going on around us. This means if we're waiting for our boss to acknowledge us for a job well done, or our teenager to say thank you for anything before we can be happy, we may be in for a very long wait. And as we'll see in a moment, happiness that's contingent on anything outside of us is not true happiness anyway. The fact is, most people have no idea what true happiness is. We often mistake satisfaction, relief, physical pleasure, and/or fun with friends or family for happiness. For instance, getting something we want is great, but it usually produces satisfaction, not true happiness. We know this because eventually the good feeling fades. True happiness never fades. Likewise, when a problem is solved or pressure removed, e.g. a financial burden is lifted, we may think we feel happy, but it's really just relief. True happiness remains even if the pressure or problem returns, whereas relief, like satisfaction, eventually fades. Similarly, physical pleasures and/or the joys of playing with others are also fleeting. Sure, it feels good to feel good in our physical bodies, but whether it's a great workout, a great meal, or a great orgasm, by this time tomorrow, the pleasurable sensations will be long gone. The same is true of having fun with friends or family. When the game is over, the fun soon goes with it. I'm not advocating the denial of physical pleasure or that we stop having fun. I'm just wanting to point out there's a difference between those things and true happiness. Some people might say true happiness is closely related to feeling affection for family or friends or being in love with another person. While it's true our bonds with family, friends, and lovers can create intense feelings of affection and delight, I'm going to reserve further discussion of this point until the next chapter. We're talking about love as much as happiness here, and in Chapter 4, we're going to take a deep dive into the subject of love, including what it means to truly love another person. For now, I'll say true happiness is more about loving ourselves than it is about loving another. Friends, family, and lovers aside for the moment, people might also ask, what about helping others? Don't we get joy from assisting our fellow man? While we can certainly experience feelings of contentment and even jubilation in being of service to others, I would still assert that true happiness is different. Never turn down an opportunity to assist others. In fact, that's one of the reasons I'm writing this book.
But it's also important to consider the following. Sometimes we may find, if we look deeply, in our desire to help others, we're actually trying to feel good about ourselves. We may be doing all kinds of great things in the world, but if our motivation is accolades, recognition, or even just some appreciation from the people we're helping, our happiness may be short-lived. On top of that, the reality is not everybody wants or needs our help. For instance, I know right now this book won't be the right fit for everyone. Imagine that. Moreover, if the source of our joy is others needing our help, then we stand to lose that feeling when they don't. Likewise, if our happiness is dependent upon other people being in a state of trouble, lack, or need, what would we do in a world full of whole and healthy people? Don't get me wrong, being of service to others is great and can represent a very high spiritual calling. Yet if our happiness is contingent on making a difference in the lives of others, we're still seeking that happiness outside ourselves. And that is not, as we'll see in a moment, the place to find true happiness.
All right, so there you have the excerpt for tonight. Again, that we started on page 84. It is a little different in the on the audio because I've been revising the book. That's actually from the second edition, but you get the gist of it. So again, I just want to reiterate something that I've been harping on for a while now. The reason we spent so much time talking, and we will continue to spend time talking about taking responsibility, is, as you heard in the reading tonight, power and responsibility are the same thing. You can't have one without the other. And this took me, I still wrestle with this. I mean, this is just so counterintuitive. You know, I still want to blame everybody else for how I feel. If somebody does something and I feel bad, I'm convinced it must be their fault. And then all I can do is be angry at them and feel sorry for myself. And I'll tell you right now, guys, that's not an empowered way to live my life, because I'm giving away my power. I'm saying, well, I can't choose how I feel in this moment, so I'm going to blame you for me feeling angry, and then I'm just going to be stuck in this emotion. I'm going to be stuck in this situation, and the only recourse I have is to be angry at you about it, to blame you for it. And, you know, I spent years doing that, and I got to tell you, it's just such a disempowered way to live. You know, true power is when somebody does something that used to trigger me and I don't get upset. I don't give my power away. I don't get mad at them. I don't make them wrong. I may remove myself from the situation, or I may remove them from my life, but I do it with love. I do it with love for myself, and I do it with respect for the other person. Instead of being reactive, being resentful, blaming them, and then just repeating these patterns over and over again about how I'm a victim of somebody else's choices, how I'm a victim of the world, how it's everybody else's fault that my life is the way it is. Oh, by the way, do you guys see the new art behind me? Pretty cool, huh? That's the Freedom Tower, Lower Manhattan. 40 by 60. Damn, I'm good. So we don't want to give our power away, because when we give our power away, we leave ourselves powerless. And being powerless sucks. Now, this is, again, we spent a lot of time talking about what power is, what true power is. And again, for most of my life, I thought true power was getting other people to change so I could feel better. Just change your life, and then I'll feel okay, and then everything will be okay. Good luck with that. See, nobody wants to be changed. They want to be accepted for who they are. Now, this is where the conflict comes in, because they may not be acceptable the way they are to me. But the solution is not to change them. The solution is to change me. The solution is to take responsibility for my thoughts, my feelings, my words, and my actions. So I love this card tonight. When we say, I did this, it's a statement of power. Because normally we say, no, you did this to me. It's your fault. I blame you. Now again, we're not making excuses for other people's bad behavior. All right? You know, people do horrible things to each other. I've done horrible things to people that I supposedly love. People who supposedly love me have done horrible things to me. This is part of the human condition. And it's when I take responsibility for my feelings, when I take responsibility for taking care of myself. See, this was tough as a kid, but as an adult, I don't have any excuses anymore not to take care of myself and my relationships with other people. Now, when we get to chapter 5, I think it is, I got a whole thing in there about boundaries. And boundaries are the primary way that we take care of ourselves and our relationships with other people. All right, but we're not quite there yet. Because when I'm in a place of blame and when I'm in a place of powerlessness, I use my boundaries to try to control somebody else. And that's not what boundaries are for. All right? All that I've done now is I've taken my attempts to control somebody else and I gave it a fancy name like boundaries. And so now it's supposed to be okay. But the gist of it is I'm still trying to control somebody else. So that's not what power is. Power is, and the definition is in the book, we talked about it. True power is the ability to consciously choose and or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Now again, I said this a million times, but I think it's really important. Our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our words and our words and actions lead to the outcomes that we experience in life. So if I start with crappy thoughts, I'm going to have crappy feelings, crappy words, crappy actions, crappy outcomes. So we're really talking about consciously and deliberately changing our thoughts and beliefs, and in particular, our thoughts and beliefs about ourselves so that they serve us, so that they move us forward. See, most of my life, my thought about myself was, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, and I'm a victim. And when I see myself as a victim in my relationships with other people, that means I see them as victimizers. And my opinion, based on my experience, there are no victims, there are no victimizers. All right? We all have a part in what happens. And what I'm talking about here is taking responsibility for our part in what happens, taking responsibility for our part in the situation, in the relationship, and so on. All right? When I start taking responsibility for somebody else's part, I'm codependent. Not my job to take care of somebody else's feelings, somebody else's thoughts, feelings, words, or actions. That's actually outside of my control. I can't do that. I can't change them. I can't take care of them. I can't fix them. And then the other thing for me, I have to remind myself of this. I fix other people so I can feel better. Most of my life I was convinced that I was trying to fix them so they would feel better. The truth is, I put my little fixer hat on and I get my little toolbox with all my tools to fix other people, but it was so I could feel better. Because if I can solve your problems and relieve your pain, I feel valuable, I feel worthy, I feel important, and most of all, I feel powerful. And for a person who spent most of my life feeling powerless, if I could, somehow change your life, that was like, oh, I'm powerful, oh, I'm important, oh, I'm valuable, oh, I'm worthy. So all that fixing, all that codependent caretaking, all of that, it wasn't, even though in many cases my suggestions were probably pretty good. Number one, if the other person didn't ask for them, that's unsolicited advice, and that's no, we don't do that. But more importantly, I don't really know what other people need to fix their life. I barely know what I need to fix my own life. So walking around thinking that I know what's best for other people is actually arrogant and condescending, because basically it's sending a message that I don't think you can take care of yourself and I know better than you what's right for you. Now, when people ask for help, it's a different story. But until somebody asks for my advice or my suggestions or whatever, I keep my mouth shut because it's none of my business. But it may also mean removing myself from that situation if that other people is acting in a way that's inappropriate, because that's part of my taking responsibility for my own well-being. And setting boundaries is the primary way that we take care of ourselves and our relationships with others. And the closer I am to somebody, the more I need boundaries, the more I need healthy boundaries. we're going to spend a month talking about boundaries. So hang on for that. It's going to be good. You're going to love it. All right. So I did this is a statement of power, not guilt, because I'm taking responsibility. And if power and responsibility are the same thing, they're actually two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Most of my life, again, this is why for most of my life I thought power was getting other people to do what I wanted them to do so I could feel okay. I thought that's what power was. I didn't realize that I could choose my own thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. It never even occurred to me in many cases because I was so convinced everybody else had power over me. So who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? This is the most basic question we can ask, and it happens, we need to ask that question, or we have an opportunity to ask that question in every situation that challenges us. And most situations that challenge us involve other people. So it's great to stop and say, oh, wait a second, I feel challenged, I feel uncomfortable, I want to punch this person in the face, whatever the warning sign is. It's great to stop in that moment and say, oh, all right, that's a red flag. How do I see myself in this situation, and how can I begin to change that? So at least I'll have a different reaction. This was, the difference between responding and reacting. So stopping, taking that pause, and just saying, okay, wait a second. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling afraid. I want to punch this person, whatever that is. And just taking that moment before anything comes out of our mouth, or God forbid, something comes out of our fists, and we stop and say, okay, wait a second. The problem is never the situation. The problem is always how I see myself in that situation, and I can always change how I see myself. I didn't used to believe that, but Peter keeps saying that, and it's in that damn book. So I got to look at this, and I got to say, can I begin to see myself differently in this moment, in this situation? And of course, we talked about this as well. If I know that I have a challenging situation coming up, then I can do some pre-planning. I can in advance, I can begin to consciously and deliberately choose to see myself in a way that's going to empower me in that situation. So if I have a meeting coming up with a difficult client or with a family member or whatever, I can in advance. So when I get to that situation, I'm ready, I'm prepared. I've already thought it through. I say, gee, whenever I interact with that person, I always feel less than, I feel stupid, I feel like they're condescending, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe before I have that meeting with them this afternoon, this might be a good time for me to get out a piece of paper, pen and a piece of paper, or on my computer, and create a new vision, create a new idea about myself, write out who I want to be in that situation. That's setting an advance intention. And by the way, if you have a copy of the book, in the appendix of the book, I have my advance intention for the book. We can set an advance intention for anything. It can be, no, it's in here. It can be as simple as setting an advance intention for what kind of sleep we want to get tonight. For getting a good night's sleep. You can see this. Anyway, it's my advance intention for the book. And I got news for you, it's going to be big. If you came late, this is my other book that I'm promoting. This is my New York City photo book. Some awesome photos of New York City in here. Fireworks and all kinds of good stuff. Available at bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. So we want to take our power back. Now, this may change how we are in our relationships with other people. And one of the things that happened for me was when I stopped taking care of other people and I started taking care of myself, some of the people in my life weren't very happy about that. They wanted me to continue to show up the way I used to and take care of them, put them first, put myself second, or whatever. And so be prepared. There may be some people in your life that when you start taking your power back, they may not know how to react to you. And they may not be happy about it. On the other hand, one of the things that I did when I started not blaming everybody else for how I felt was it freed up other people to be themselves in their relationship with me. They didn't have to feel guilty. They didn't have to be defensive. I wasn't blaming them. And when I stopped, one person in particular, my mother, when I stopped blaming my mother for all my problems, we started to have a whole different relationship because she was no longer defensive and she was no longer on guard and she was no longer feeling guilty, because I was really good at making her feel guilty for all the bad things she had done. And now I can say, the truth is she did a lot of great things. She was wonderful in so many ways, but I couldn't see it because in my mind, for me to be who I thought I was, I had to make her be who I thought she was. And if I thought I was a victim in that relationship, then that meant she was the victimizer. And I couldn't see her any differently because I was stuck in this drama. Another great book. I think it's on my recommended reading list. I'll mention it next week. The Celestine Prophecy. All right, this book was written in the early 1990s. Celestine Prophecy, in it he talks about control dramas. And basically the gist of it is almost all unhealthy human relationships are founded on trying to control each other, manipulate situations, to steal energy from each other, to make each other feel guilty. So my control drama with my mother was that she was the victimizer and I was the victim. And I was so locked into that I could never really see the good stuff about her. And she was wonderful. There were so many things that she was so wonderful, but I couldn't see those because I was only focused on the negative. And I had this idea in my head that said, I'm the victim, she's the victimizer. All right, so what we're talking about is moving past all of that stuff, guys. And the way we do that is by taking responsibility, and that's how we take our power back. Now remember, responsibility is not the same as blame. All right, whether we're talking about me taking responsibility for myself or somebody else taking responsibility for themselves, we're not talking about guilt. We're not talking about blame. We're not talking about shame. All right, a few weeks ago, I mentioned the 3 A's: awareness, accountability, and action. That's what taking responsibility means. We're aware that we've done something that has a negative impact on ourselves or somebody else. We become willing to be accountable to that person. And the action is when we set things right. So that's what responsibility is. And ultimately, that's how we get our power back. Now, again, anybody who's worked the 12 steps, we know in step 4, we take a fearless and searching moral inventory of ourselves. And that's when we get to see the worst of us. And that's when I got to see all the stuff that I didn't like about myself, all the stuff that I felt guilty about, all the stuff that I crucified myself for and or blamed other people for. And in step 4, we asked a very important question. We look at all those situations where there was conflict or problems, and we say, what was my part in that? The inventory that I take is of my part. I don't take somebody else's inventory. I don't look at what they did or didn't do, should have done, didn't do, could have done, and all that. All right, so I'm taking responsibility for my part. And then in steps 8 and 9, we actually make our amends, which is the accountability and our action part, where we set things right. And as I said earlier, for most of my life, I never wanted to take responsibility for my shortcomings or my mistakes or the way I harmed other people because I was afraid that was just more proof that I was a bad person. But it actually, by taking responsibility, by making an amends, by setting things right, it actually boosts my self-esteem because I now feel better about myself because when I've done something that's harmed somebody else, I naturally feel guilty. I feel shamed. I feel bad about myself. So by taking responsibility, by making an amends, I take my power back and I raise my self-esteem. I don't have to beat myself up anymore for my mistakes. All right, and then the other one, so now we're going to transition. It's already time for break. But let's transition. So chapter 3 is true power, and then after true power comes true happiness. So we're going to start our discussion tonight of happiness. And again, the assignment for tonight when we come back from the break is, how do you define happiness? Now this is a quote from the book. People who are truly happy are probably happy despite the events and circumstances of their lives rather than because of them. Now, if you know anything about the book, the way this book came about was a year and a half ago. I was in California, and I was on the first half of the trip. I was in Los Angeles, and I was doing a photo shoot for a client. I was doing a lifestyle photo shoot for a product company. And then after I did that photo shoot in Los Angeles, I drove up north to Yosemite, to Northern California, because I wanted to photograph Yosemite and do some fine art photography up there. And I drove up there, and I went to Big Sur first. I spent the night there, and then it was another 4-hour drive from Big Sur up to Yosemite. And I made that drive, and I got out of the car. It wasn't actually Yosemite. I think it was Mendocino. It was the town right before you get to Yosemite. I had to go to the bathroom. I was looking for a bathroom. Got out of the car. I was in the car for 4 hours. Got out of the car. I was a little stiff or whatever. And I was walking into the visitor center, and I went to go up this concrete ramp that they had. And I was parked on the side, and there were a line of vending machines. They were actually newspaper vending machines. And right behind the vending machines, there was a curb that I couldn't see. And I walked to the end of the vending machines, and I went to turn to go up the ramp, and I tripped on the curb. And that's when I tore my calf muscle. Now, if you've ever torn your calf muscle or any muscle, it's excruciating. It was so unbelievably painful and debilitating. I mean, from that moment on, I couldn't walk normally. I couldn't drive normally. I couldn't really put any weight on my right foot at all. Now, the reason I'm retelling you this story is because I finally made it to the hotel room, and I decided I was going to stay. I was 6 days away from my return flight to New Jersey. And I just thought, I need to have that time to recuperate, to rehabilitate a little bit. But what happened was, so I get to the hotel, and I also had my moment of clarity, which the moment of clarity, again, you may know, you may not know. The moment of clarity was when I tore my calf muscle. Within 10 seconds, despite the screaming pain and the blinding pain and the confusion, a very clear thought came into my head. And that clear thought was, now you can write your book. And I got to say, the last thing on my mind at that moment was writing a book, any book. I'd thought about writing this book for a long time, but I hadn't thought about it for months prior to that moment. And in that particular moment, last thing on my mind. But from that moment on, I knew exactly what I had to do, which was to write that book. And I started that night. The night I got to my hotel room in Yosemite, I sat down at the computer and I started writing. And that's when this thought came into my head, because I realized I have a choice in this moment. This really sucks. This is not what I was planning to do for the next week. I had this whole thing planned out about all these amazing photos I was going to take at Yosemite. I had all the locations scoped out. I was meeting some friends there. It was going to be this whole thing. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk. I ended up not taking one photo. But in that moment, I realized that I had a choice. And that choice was, I get to decide how I feel in this moment. And I can either say, this sucks, or I can say, you know what? I'm going to do the best that I can, and something positive is going to come out of this. And so for me, that was making a choice to be happy despite the events and circumstances of my life rather than because of them. All right, so we're going to have a lot more to say about happiness over the next couple of weeks. We're going to start the discussion when we come back from the break. So why don't we do that now? Oh, before I forget, and I'll mention this again at the end of the meeting, I'm looking for testimonials from you guys. So if you value the work that we're doing, if you can give me 2 or 3 sentences that I can put on my website, that I can put in my emails, my marketing emails and all that, I would really appreciate it. Cynthia has already given me one. Thank you so much. And And then, so what we're going to do now, we'll take our 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about how you define happiness, and we'll go from there. All right, we are back. So let's come back to this question. Well, actually, so just again, the gist of this is, if I'm waiting for other people to cooperate or to act in a certain way before I can be happy, I am kind of screwed. Well, I've tried it. Maybe it works for you guys, So taking our power back, see, there's a reason that this chapter is true power and true happiness. They're kind of the same thing. You may get that where we're going with this is there's a direct correlation between, taking our power back and how much happiness we experience in life. So I'm responsible for my own happiness, number one. True power and true happiness, baby. So this begins to change the equation. This begins to change the discussion. This begins to say, well, wait a second. So I'm actually responsible for my own happiness. Nobody else's job to make me happy. They can't actually do that anyway. Remember, if I feel bad or if I feel good, it's nobody else's fault. I can't blame somebody else for that. And this is where it's tough sometimes because it's not obvious. And, somebody does something nice or somebody, says something nice about me or somebody gives me a gift or, whatever. And after that, I feel good. I say, well, you make me feel so good. But I've just given my power away because when they stop saying nice things about me, now it's like, oh, you make me feel so bad. And now I get to be angry and resentful and blame you for how I feel. And that's living a powerless life. All right, I've talked enough. So let's hear from you guys. The question, the assignment for tonight is, how do you define happiness? It's here somewhere. Yes. So how do you define happiness? And we're going to talk about this for the next 2 weeks, but let's start tonight. So let's hear from you guys. What's your definition of happiness?
Hi, Peter. It's Barbara.
Hi, Barb.
So I wrote down a few things, but what really came up with you talking and me thinking about today, you have things you have, life is good, that makes, and there's your happiness, or you smile. All you have to do is smile and you feel much better. If you really want to call it happy, you feel happy. You wrote down a few other words, joy, well-being. But at the bottom here, I have success. And success can bring you happiness. And, again, you're saying it all not all has to do with yourself, but success is inside of you. And I think you mentioned it, or you had it here in your advanced intentions. You have my intention with respect to this book is that it's a huge success. And that would make you very happy. So I kind of put those two together And then just a quick, long story short, I have my issues, Peter, with work and the computer and okay. And I mentioned it to you. I don't like when it's boring, but boy. So because of you, I take on more situations with the computer. So I walked in, we have a change of shift, and she was telling me that the print is not working. Call up the printing company and find out. Okay, how can I make this a long story short? Okay, we're going to try to fix it, but I got to go on her computer. I totally flipped out, Peter. I was like, I don't want to touch her computer. You know how I feel. And so I started with, I can do this. Okay. So he had to call me back. So I said, okay. I actually called somebody and said, can I use this computer? How can I do it? And I logged in myself, and she's home quarantining, so she can't come over and help me. Okay. So so that happens, and then life happens. I get somebody at the door. I get somebody needs this. I have somebody has that, and the guy calls to want to go into my computer and go to my computer. Well, go to the web page, go to my computer. It was just like, and I just stayed calm. I did. I knew by what you were saying, and I was practicing everything you were saying. I knew that everything had to do with me. I knew it, so I was okay. The bell, the doorbell's ringing, the phone's ringing. This one's talking to me. This one has a meeting at 3:00 that I didn't know about. And I have Brian on the phone, who's a computer, the printing tech. Okay. So you can, and other meetings were going on at the same time. You could see people were looking at me. They recognized that I was doing troubleshooting with the computer, which is a big thing for anybody, and all these other things going on. Okay. Let's just say I did my regular work. He was wonderful. He was as kind and as patient as he could possibly be. And he even walked me to another computer that I had to do it again. And by the time he finished, and everything else got calm, it was probably within a 45-minute span. I remember just sitting in the chair, and either I said, I need a drink, or I said, success, forward. And there it was. And I was very happy, Peter. So I'm trying to work this into what you were saying. And I don't know how you feel about success and happiness, but obviously you've said it too. There's many things that can make you happy, but what are we going to say? Joy, contentment. Those are the things that can define being happy or happiness. But me and the computer, I don't know, Peter.
Well, now you're a troubleshooter. We're going to call you, Barb the troubleshooter. That's great.
It was a piece of cake. And no, it was not. And I'm never going. You told me to stop saying all those things. And I tried so hard not to say any of those. Oh, I can't. I don't want to. I don't know. I really try. And I don't know if I did say them or not.
Well, look, habits are difficult to break. So, some of us, we've been saying things to ourselves for 40, 50 years. It's tough to change in the moment.
Okay.
But this is great because what we're talking about is you responded rather than reacted. Beautiful. Right. You stopped and said, I have a choice here on how. So let me ask you something. When the whole thing started, how did you see yourself?
Yeah, because when it first started, it was quiet. And I saw myself bigger than I was. I saw myself saying, I am going to do this instead of running away from it. I'm going to take care of the printer and computer. That's part of life. And, I just said, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And it didn't stay quiet. So, but, it worked out. I had all these wonderful people looking at me, and I really felt like every single one of them knew exactly what I was going through. They've all been there.
Well, I'm sure they have.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anybody who hasn't at one point or another, wanted to take a computer and throw it out the window. I mean, there are videos.
Troubleshoot it, and a printer, right? You and printing and printers. It's just this big monster machine, but whatever he did.
You can see videos on YouTube of people destroying their computers because they're so frustrated.
I guess I
But-
have to watch. Yeah.
But that's giving our power away. And I think that's,
Yes.
it's particularly with a computer, it's like, I really have to get, it's like, wow, I'm like totally giving up my peace of mind. I'm giving my power away to an operating system, something I have no control over whatsoever.
Right.
And here's the thing, I've had some experiences where I've actually, I don't do this anymore, but I would get so worked up that I would call Microsoft and I would get their tech support people on the phone, and I would immediately ask to have the whole thing escalated. So I would get one of their senior tech support people, and on more than one occasion, I was right. There was something wrong with their operating system. I was
Okay.
correct, but I still, I get off the phone afterwards and I realized, wow, I wasted my whole afternoon on this. I totally gave away my peace of mind. I'm exhausted. I was stressed out. I was so frustrated. So even when I was right, I was wrong because of what I put myself through.
Right. So that's why I'll talk about why I'm saying it to you. Because now that we're talking about this and responsibility and control, not control, choices and this, I was able to go into the situation that way, that I could have, when all the stuff stopped, I could sit down and go, well, success, and actually feel happy.
Great. That's
Okay.
awesome.
So that's why I had to talk about this happiness thing. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Now, the only
It
thing I
is.
want to say, Barb, is
Yes.
it's not because of me. I'm not going to take credit for any of this.
Oh, you keep on saying that. Well, you're helping by giving the,
Listen, but you're helping
workshop.
yourself. You're doing it, not me.
okay.
I wrote the book. That was my part. There's a lot of people who have bought this book and haven't read it. And there's a lot more people who haven't bought it yet. They will buy it eventually, but they haven't bought it yet. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong camera. They haven't bought it yet, but they will.
Okay.
So you're doing it.
Okay. Yes,
I'm not
I do.
going to take responsibility and,
Okay.
own your power. This is you going in there. I'm glad that what I'm saying is resonating with you. I'm glad that you're able to apply the principles, but it's all you, baby. It's not me.
Okay.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
Own it. Take ownership. Remember, taking responsibility means we take ownership.
Well, I guess I did when I actually felt happy about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, at the beginning, you said, well, because of you.
Okay. I know, and I do say that a lot. Well, okay. All right. There's
Because
some,
look, because if I'm responsible for your success, then I'm responsible for everybody else's failure who doesn't apply the principles or whatever. And I'm not going there. It's not my,
right.
and I have no power. If you choose to take what you learn here and apply it in your life, you're doing that. I have no control over that.
Okay, so that's probably another step of mine that I need to take care of.
We don't have to make a big deal out of it, but I'm just going to gently remind you because
Okay, you
I
can.
think it would be really helpful for you to really own your power.
Okay.
And that's at all moments and all levels and all situations.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes.
So that's
Thank
all I'm
you.
saying. Now,
Okay.
I think you did great. I'm proud of you. I think you did a great job. I love it when, I've been there myself. I see it in other people. When we're confronted with that situation that used to totally spin us out.
Oh,
and
totally. Yeah.
and we don't go there.
Yes.
That's huge. That's awesome.
Yes, it is.
So you did
It's
great.
a great feeling. Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Now the flip side for me was what I said, it's like, even when I'm right, I can still kind of wear myself out, or whatever. And I've also had situations where I shared about this, maybe the first or second workshop. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I've had situations where even when I got what I said I wanted, I felt disappointed afterwards because I didn't really want what I said I wanted. I still wanted to feel victimized in that situation. I still wanted to be mad at the other people. And when somebody helps me or does something to help me, then it's like, oh shit, now I can't even be angry at them, and there's a part of me that doesn't want to give that up because I'm so addicted to this idea of being a victim and everything else. We don't have to say more than that, but
No.
so this is great. You're doing great work. You're in the
Yep.
moment. You're making changes. You're forgiving yourself if you don't do it perfectly. You're forgiving other people for their humanity. You know, we're all a mess. We're all, you know, we all got issues.
Yes, we are. But no, it's action and reaction, and I acted instead of reacted. And, you know, we can fool around with these words, but they're all true. Yes, it felt great. Felt happy.
Awesome. Great job. Woohoo! Oh, and the other thing I was going to say, Barb, is, you know, it's like, if I can be happy when I fail, that's true happiness.
Oh,
You know, if I'm not letting the situation dictate for me how I feel about myself or whatever, I mean, that's real mastery. If I can have a failure, if I can have, and still find a way to find joy or whatever, because again, if my happiness is dependent on something outside of me, so this is what we're going to talk about next week. This is true happiness. If my happiness is dependent on something outside of me, then again, I can't control that. I'm not in control of that. And so my happiness depends on something else happening. It's contingent.
no, I can almost, what would be the word? Feel that or understand that. And you're absolutely right. Can you imagine going through something, saying, okay, I can do this, go through it, and fail, and still be okay? You know, or yeah, I get that's something you have to
That's
work
big.
towards. Yeah, you have to work towards that.
That's big.
That's
I mean, look,
very big.
it's easy to be happy when things are going my way.
Yeah, or there was a success. Yeah, it went my way.
When I was sitting in that hotel room, you know, when that first night, I couldn't walk. It was a nightmare. It was horrible. And the nearest hospital was 45 minutes away. I knew what the injury was because I had done the same thing to my left leg like 6 years earlier. So I immediately knew what happened. I knew the protocol. I knew how to recover from it, but I also knew it meant being off my feet for 12 weeks when all was said and done. And I knew somehow I had to get from California back to New Jersey. I was traveling by myself. It was a nightmare. And I got to the hotel where I was staying. I had to drive with my left foot. I had to do the brake and the gas and everything with my left foot because I couldn't use my right leg. And Yosemite is in the mountains. So there's these twisty mountain roads to get up there. So I got to the hotel and I had a limp. I was hopping into the lobby, and the poor guy behind the desk at the hotel, he looked at me and he said, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" And I kind of explained it, but he became like my angel. He found me crutches. You know, the nearest, I called the hospital supply store and all that. They didn't deliver and they were closed. It was a holiday. He went and found me crutches. He helped me carry my bags in and out. He got me food. I mean, he saved my ass, and he helped me when I had to leave and all that. So, but in that moment, you know, when I sat down, it was like, wow, you know, I can either look at this, I'm fucked, and this is really bad, or, you know, I can find a way to make this work, and I can find a way to see the good in this, and I can find a way to trust that this is, for whatever's happening right now is for my highest good. That's a very empowering belief. And the belief that I'm up to this challenge, you know, I can handle the situation. I can take care of myself. I'll find a way, you know, something greater, you know, this is a great time to rely on that relationship with something greater, you know, trusting that everything that's unfolding in our lives is unfolding that way for a reason. Now, it wasn't all, you know, I went in and out, and I certainly had my moments, you know, but somehow I managed to get back okay. And, you know, it all worked out. But in that moment, I thought I was done. I didn't know what was going to happen to me.
Yes.
All right, who else?
I do remember it, Peter. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Who else? How do you define happiness? Michelle, you want to say something?
It's funny because that you say about happiness, because I talk about this with my one child about happiness, and I'm trying to convince her to stay upbeat. And I'm like, well, I try to find happiness in my day, like trying to, like the sun, and that brings me happiness. I guess it's a poor example because I don't want her to look toward objects to be happy, because it's a disappointment once that object fades. So she has to find happiness within herself, but I think that's very hard for somebody to do. And it's blaming others and feeling a certain way, and I think that all is all intertwined.
All right, good. So I heard you saying something about gratitude, being grateful for seeing the sun, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think the warmth of it makes me happy, and I try to, I mean, just keep that in my mindset for the day. I mean, so I don't think of the negative of what might transpire throughout the day, and try to remain upbeat. But then I do get consumed with what happens throughout the day. So it's hard to keep that mindset, but, and then I internalize everybody else's stuff within myself.
I get it. Yeah. So it's, remember, how I see myself in that situation. See, if I thought that I could handle whatever life sends my way, I'm going to have one response to the situations that I face. Yes, they may be challenges, they may be difficult, there may be obstacles to overcome, but if I have spent some time working on myself, see how I see myself, who I think I am, I've started to believe in myself, and it's very difficult. Believe me, I always say it's simple, but not easy, because what happens is those negative thoughts and beliefs about myself for the last 40 years created a bunch of experiences in my life which reinforce those negative thoughts and beliefs about myself. So now all of a sudden, it's not that I have negative thoughts about myself. It's like I have proof that those negative thoughts about me are true. So we come up against a lot. When we start doing this work, we come up against, for me, it's 30 years of negative baggage. But that's why I keep emphasizing, it's how I see myself that determines everything. And I have control over that. I have the ability to choose who I think I am, how I see myself. Even if it's just being nicer to myself. You know what? I can say, gee, you know what? I don't know how to handle this, or this is a storm, or whatever, but I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to be nice to myself. I made a mistake. I screwed this thing up, but you know what? I'm still going to be nice to myself. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to make myself wrong. I'm going to acknowledge myself for doing the best that I can. If I have to make things right with somebody else, I'll do that. Although I'm not going to take on their baggage. I don't have to caretake everybody around me. If it's not my fault, that kind of thing. And then I'm going to get on with my day.
But how can you convince somebody else to become happy when they're not in that mindset?
You can't. So I'm going to tell you right, I'll save you years of agony. If you're talking about your kids, you have no control. You cannot make somebody else feel happy.
So how do they get the help they need?
You be the model. You demonstrate it. You show them how you face challenges in your life and you come out the other side happy or nice to yourself or confident or maybe not being mean to yourself. I mean, whatever it is. The best thing we can do is become that model, that living example for the people that we love.
But I think it's their own experiences in their life that they play over and over in their head that they can't get past.
Well, welcome to the club. I mean, this is why people go to therapy for years. This is why people go to 12-step programs. This is why I wrote my book.
It's hard to find the right person as a therapist. It's like going through tissues. It's like, next.
That's your belief based on your experience, and maybe there's a way to shift that. Maybe you can trust that you'll find the right person. Not easy. I get it. I totally understand. Simple, but not easy. But, you know, what else do we have to do? Because the alternative, for me at least, I'll speak for myself, Michelle, I'm not going to speak for you or anybody else. The alternative is to keep repeating all those patterns, and it only gets worse. You know, I mean, if I haven't talked about my romantic relationships, I mean, my life was a mess. And not only was I repeating the same thing over and over again, but it was getting worse. And it wasn't until I really started looking at myself, taking responsibility for myself, being nicer to myself, changing who I thought I was, how I saw myself. That's when things began to change. And there wasn't, I did a lot of therapy in my life, and they were all helpful and they were all good in their own way and they were helpful. But ultimately I had to do that for myself.
Well, that's what the therapist had said to the counselor had said to me the other day. You could take whatever it is that we're giving you, but unless you apply it to your life, it's not going to change.
Yeah. That was what I was talking to Barbara about earlier.
And
She
but
wants
like also to let things go and learn to let things go, and to learn to let things go and just let it go and not replay it over and over and over and over as like, you know, it's the past. You have to just let it go.
Yeah, there's a lot there's a lot to be said for that. And remember, we get to choose, consciously and deliberately choose what we focus our mental attention on. If I spend my afternoon ruminating about what somebody did to me yesterday or last week, I mean, I've sat and ruminated over what somebody did to me 30 years ago. I spent an afternoon ruining my afternoon thinking about what somebody did to me, you know, last year or 5 years ago. But here's the thing, true power is I get to choose in the moment what I'm giving my mental attention to.
So how do you find a therapist to help you work you through that? Like, who's the right therapist? We're going to find them. Because you can't go based on ratings. I've tried that. It doesn't always work.
Well, all I could say for myself is I think one of the main things I have to do is begin to trust more and just say, you know what? I'm going to be led to the right person. Now, I have to use discretion. I have to do my due diligence, you know, and not everybody's going to be the right person. I actually did a short film many years ago with a woman, and we did a short film together, and it was called Stella's Search for Sanity. And it was all about this character's different therapists that she went to see to try and get help. And at the end of the movie, the conclusion of the movie was when she realized that the therapists were all sicker than she was. Now again, there are great therapists out there. There are people who really try their best. They want to help people and all that.
What's the name of that movie again?
It's something, you know, it was just something fun that we did. I actually directed it. It was great. You can't see it though. It's kind of faded away. But the point is, you know, it's like, you know, take your power back. And, you know, yes, it may take a while to find the right person, but if my belief going into that situation is, you know, all therapists suck, then guess what? You know, that it's like whatever I believe is what I attract into my life. It's not even like, it's actually what happens. And then the other thing is maybe you can do more for yourself than you think you can. And hopefully, I know you have a copy of the book, you know, if the book has been helpful or whatever. There's other people out there. There's Tony Robbins. I mean, there's all kinds of people who have their own take on this stuff. So it's about being proactive. It's about taking responsibility for my own well-being, a mental, emotional, and physical well-being.
Well, that's what the counselors say too. You have to take time for yourself, for you to maintain your own well-being.
Hey, you know what? You're here tonight. That's something good, right? You're doing something for yourself.
Yeah, the other week I actually fell asleep on the Zoom. I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I'm holding the phone. And I'm like, what happened? It was over.
I won't take that personally.
No.
All right, listen, I think you're doing better than you know. And, you know, I'm just going to encourage you to just keep at it, you know, and make a decision. I'm going to find the help I need. I'm going to be the person that can help myself, you know, I'm going to begin to look at this question of how I see myself in all these situations that challenge me. I'm going to be my own best friend. I'm not going to do everything perfectly, and I'm not going to beat myself up for that. That's why I harp so much the first few weeks on those affirmations. I say those affirmations every single day. People would think I'm crazy if they came in my house in the morning, but I need to do that to reprogram all those negative thoughts and beliefs that I have about myself.
Do that, but how do you get them the help they need? The other people within your life, the help they need, and get them to where they need to be. If people are giving up and saying, I'm not the right one, I'm not the right one, and I'm not the right one, then what do you do?
Well, you got a choice. Are you gonna listen to what other people say? You're gonna keep going. And then it's also, if the other people are adults, then they have to take some responsibility for their own well-being.
They're
but
all
again,
therapists. So they're all the therapists are saying, I'm not the right one. No, I'm not the right. I can't. I don't know how to help.
well, maybe they're doing you a favor then. Maybe they're letting you know that they're not the right person. So you don't have to spend money and time with somebody who can't help. But again, I think the best thing, Michelle, I know you're talking about your family, people you love, you want the best for them, you want to help them. The best thing I think we can do is, and it's easy for me to say because I don't have kids. So just take all this with a grain of salt. But I think the best thing we can do is, number one, take care of ourselves, do what we need to do to take care of ourselves. And then number two is be that example of somebody who practices all this stuff. People learn not from what you say, but they learn from what you do. I don't know if you have any experience, for me, 12-step programs were so helpful. Codependence Anonymous, coda.org, it was so helpful for me. There's you get support, there's other people, it's not therapy, but it's people who are there trying to work out their stuff, and they're helping each other to do that. So
Okay.
you may just look at the website, coda.org, Codependence Anonymous. There's all kinds of 12-step programs out there. As I said, there's other people, relationship coaches. There's people who are doing parenting workshops, parenting stuff. There's a lot of resources out there now. And if I trust that I'm going to get the help that I need, and I may have to do, it may take some time. I may have to go through some people to find the right person. But if I have that trust, if I have that belief, for me at least, it usually works out.
Okay.
Look, the alternative is, it's more of the same. And in my experience, it gets worse. And nothing changes until I change. For most of my life, it was everybody else had to change. And I just got worse and worse for me. And I'm somebody who used drugs and alcohol and other things to cope with my life because I couldn't deal. And none of that helped. All right. Anything else, Michelle? You good?
Good. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. I really appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your willingness to share, to be vulnerable like that. Thank you. Anybody
It's
else?
life, right?
Huh?
It's life.
It is life. Yeah. Not always pretty. It's not always easy. It's never perfect.
Nope.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in? We got like a minute or two left. How do you define happiness?
Hi, I'm sorry, guys.
Anything
I'm
else?
late. And Helena. Hi, Peter. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Helena.
For me, I guess in my current journey, happiness is really about being a service and, keeping my set of street clear, like clean and clear. Basically, I feel like I have to clear my my conscience of all the things that I did and, willing to make that living amends, and then like bring back this the positive, the positivity and gratitude into my life, is what seems to be working for me. and share that gratitude and positive things with other people. Yeah.
Great. Love it. Now you said, I think one of the first things you said was making amends, living amends.
Yeah.
How do you define that?
I mean, how do I define it? Well, I work on 12-step too. And actually, I've been in that for a long time, but some particular reason, I feel like this year, so many things are coming into my life, including this workshop that you're doing, and as well as other things. And making amends is not necessarily, I guess it doesn't really mean that I feel it in my heart that I owe apology, I kind of feel that it's like something I learned is it's like I may not feel like I don't feel like I owe apology, but it's not about me, I think it's really not about me. It's about God, it's about higher power, it's about the entire universe, it's not about me. I always looked at everything about me. I was a center, but I learned that it's not about me, so sometimes I have to do something that is it's not about me. I have to be willing to go outside of myself, to do amends to people that I haven't been in contact for a long time. It's just my thing, that I usually cut off people and I just go anorexic. I don't talk to them anymore. But I guess, like being self-righteous versus, doing really what's right seems like there is a huge difference. So
Right, good.
I don't want to do it, but
What about, do you subscribe? So this was something that was really important for me. And one of the things I loved about Codependence Anonymous, was the first person on our amends list is ourselves. And I actually did a formal 9th step with myself, right? I made an amends to myself. I went through all the ways I had harmed myself, and it was very powerful. It was life-changing, actually. And then the living amends was to change my behavior going forward.
Exactly. Yep. Changing the behavior. And that takes a lot, for me to make, because it's like, that's almost like I have to go against my own will, my own way of like looking at things and believing, I have to totally go against the grain. It's really hard.
I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
You're doing good work. Good. Love it. Anybody else? Helena, you want to say anything else?
No, I just think it's really wonderful you're doing this for free. I think people love getting things for free. I mean, I have to say that I love it because it's free. I just have to be honest, But it's not that I just love it because it's free. I think it's really great because it definitely has a positive message, that like we can all like, apply this to our daily lives. And, I mean, I learned things that such as like, yeah, taking out your picture, like your childhood photo, or your pictures in your 20s. I actually made a vision board out of that too. I took out all my photos, and when I moved out here to South Korea from Los Angeles, I brought my photos. This is before all that digitalization happened, and I made a vision board of myself, with using different pictures from different period of my life, and it just created a whole story of my life, right? So I look at these photos and I can see the life that I have been living, and then I get to think about like, what kind of life do I want to have, from now on to the future. So I'm very grateful for this free workshop that you've been giving us. I want to say thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you for being here. And I would love to see your vision board if you ever want to share it.
Yeah, I will definitely share it next time, because actually right now, it's a morning here. So that's why I always don't have my video on, because it's morning and I'm on my
Whenever you feel comfortable. I get it. Whenever you feel comfortable.
Sure. And also another reason I had to make this vision board is because I suffered, as you know, I suffered a really bad, physical problem for years and years. So for me, you know, I kind of really needed to do that. And I think I think it was like maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, you were talking about, you know, like looking at your picture and talking to yourself totally like inspired me, and, you know, made me really look at my pictures and my life in the past. And then I had such a strong desire for me to put my life back together, you know, to before the injuries and all that, you know, health problem happened. And, you know, like I had to do it for myself, you know, so I get to learn who I am, you know. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, that's it. That's beautiful. I mean, that's great. You know, you're doing it for yourself. And for anybody who wasn't here, I was talking about an inner child process that I started doing years ago. I don't know if it came from John Bradshaw. I know John Bradshaw wrote a couple of books that I've talked about actually, Homecoming and Healing the Shame That Binds You. And in one of those books, he might talk about it. But what I did was I took a photo of myself, I think it was in kindergarten. It was a school picture. And this is when I first got into recovery for codependence. And when I would do my meditation, I would take that photo out and I would put it on the table in front of me. And I would begin to have a dialogue and have a relationship and talk to that little kid and get to know that, you know, as my inner child, the little Peter. And a lot of stuff came out. It was, you know, it was hard, but ultimately it was great, you know. And I've been doing a little bit of that recently again. And it's also something that I've done. I talk about it in chapter 7 when I talk about forgiveness. There've been a couple of instances where I was really upset with somebody and I had a photo of them as a child. And I did the same thing. I went into a meditation and I got that photo of them as a child. And I had this inner dialogue with them. And it was really healing. It was very powerful, you know. So if you have photos of yourself, maybe you've done this, but, and I love Helena's talking about doing a whole vision board. A vision board is where you take a piece of like construction paper or foam core or whatever, and you put pictures all over it. Or you can do it on your phone or computer, make a collage. So it's great. I love that. We only have a couple, actually we're over time, but anybody else want to say anything? Thank you, Helena. Anybody else want to just say anything before we wrap it up? No? All right, so I'm going to play the song one last time and then we'll come back and say goodbye for the evening. All right, guys, before I forget, again, if you came late, Helena, you might be interested in this. Actually, I think you will be. Starting next week, we're going to have the same meeting info every week. So let me pull it up here. So going forward, all right, starting next week, this is the meeting ID for all the workshops going forward. So you probably save this in your Zoom app, and then a same passcode, bigger. So it's 842-0353-1228. And that'll be for all the workshops, at least for the next, till, I think I can only do like for 1 year, but that should be enough for now at least. All right, so remember that. And then I'm also looking for testimonials. If you guys are willing to just give me something I can put on my website and put in my emails, my marketing. So just 2 or 3 sentences, I love the workshop because, or, whatever you get out of it. Cynthia wrote me a great one. Thank you so much, Cynthia. And I think that's it. Anybody want to say anything before we go? Everybody good?
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
everyone sharing.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, great, guys.
Good
So have a
night.
great week.
Thanks.
Be bigger than you think you are. And I want to hear about all the victories next week.
All right, good night, Peter. Thank you. Love
Good
you.
All right,
night.
great, guys. All right, have a good week.
Thank you, Peter.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Night.